Hello, everybody. This is Jordan here with L Cubed, and I'm joined today by Ari Silverman, a hometown hero, an old friend, and a certified self-proclaimed Bitcoin maximist. How are you doing today, Ari?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. Super happy to be here.
Likewise, yeah, I'm really happy you joined the show. Yeah, me and Ari go way back. We used to play baseball together at Bel Air High School.
Yeah, man. That I still think about that, and like I honestly cringe a little bit. Baylor baseball was a grind, but a lot of good stuff came from it, I think.
And a lot of good relationships, a lot of meetings, and that's what life's all about. And that's what this podcast is about: convergence of different worlds, learning. And so today, like we'd mentioned, we'll be discussing Bitcoin. I'm sure everybody should have heard of Bitcoin by now. It's had a tremendous rise, tremendous falls. It's so much in the media to where CNBC is talking about it.
Yeah.
I just want to open up the floor for firstly to you. What's your experience with Bitcoin?
So the first time I bought Bitcoin, like most people, was back in 2017. I think the price ran up to like 20K. Everybody was like, "What is this? How do I get some?" Trying to get in on the momentum, right? So I bought a little bit, did not know what I bought at all. Uh, Actually just held it in my Coinbase wallet and ended up checking it 3 years later. Uh, I guess December 2019, like right before COVID happened. I kind of figured things weren't making sense. The dots weren't connecting. I knew about Bitcoin. Came home my last semester of college. I was at A&M taking wine class, playing racquetball every
Wait,
day with my buddies, like
wait,
just
wine
just
class. Wait,
chilling,
wait,
dude. Like
we got to pause here. Wine class.
for
Tell me
sure.
more. Tell me more.
Sure. So, just a fun class I got to take my last semester. I had a couple credits or hours left that I needed to complete, so got lucky enough to take that. But yeah, man, we missed out on all like the cheese and wine pairings, the dessert wines. So just had a few classes before we were all sent home because of COVID. So didn't get the full experience. Like the tests afterwards were online, open book, super easy.
Now, how do you test someone about wine if you're not enjoying that like in a class?
It was all stuff you could Google, man. It was like, how,
Uh,
which region of Italy is this from? But it was a cool experience. I wish I would have gotten to do the full thing, but
so
uh,
now when you go to a restaurant on a date or something, are you like that
yeah.
asshole like, oh, tell me about the tannin level, which region of Italy?
I wish, man. I wish my girl likes sweet red, so we keep it simple. That's what we
There you
drink.
go. Some nice barefoot
Yeah,
then.
exactly. The $5 stuff. They
Yeah.
actually did they showed us a study that we like did blind taste tests, and they gave you a $50 bottle and then a $5 bottle, and you had to vote on which one you liked more. And I think it was pretty even. Like you couldn't even tell the difference. Like, oh, this is a super nice wine, or oh, this is a shitty wine. It was just like the price doesn't reflect, the how good the wine can be. So pretty interesting.
That is interesting. A lot of people wouldn't believe that with all the conspicuous consumption spending that we've seen, especially in 2020 with the money supply going crazy, but we'll get into that. And then
For sure.
lastly, I want to touch on racquetball because I
Yes,
took
sir.
racquetball like my senior year because I had all my credits and so I took extra PE and I fucking love racquetball. I've been looking for a gym to play and some people to get together, but haven't been able to. So maybe when we're in the same city, we'll connect and go at it.
For sure, man. It's a lot of fun. I started playing, just had a lot of time on my hands. Was going to the gym every day to work out with my buddies, and we just started playing. Got real good at it, and I play now at the LA Fitness in Austin, South Lamar, baby.
There you
It's a,
go.
it's a great league we got going. It's pretty fun.
If any Austinites are listening, pull up, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so, yeah, after senior year,
Yeah.
I guess one question would be, why did you, why did you never sell it? I mean, a lot of people in 2017, they bought on the hype. And then as soon as it started going down, everybody sold it. They're like, fuck that. Like, I remember vividly sitting in class. I think it was a marketing class, and I heard two sorority girls that weren't finance majors. You know, I knew them. They, you know, really didn't have any finance experience, and they were like, "Oh my God, what's this Bitcoin thing? Like, I think I should buy it." And there's a famous quote, like, when your shoe shine gives you a stock tip, that's when you know to sell. And that's kind of the start of Bitcoin crashing. So why did you not, you know, sell? Why do you have diamond hands?
Man, like I truly did not understand what I bought. You know, I put in $100. It wasn't like it was much. I was just gonna flirt with it and see what happened. And yeah, I actually went off to Israel right after I bought it.
Birthright?
Did birthright for 10 days
Nice.
and came back and wasn't even thinking about it. You know, the price had gone down. I was just like, whatever, I'll worry about it when I worry about it, I guess. And turned out to be a good play.
And that's how a lot of investments should be. I know everybody's got FOMO. They're trying to get these quick gains, you know, very fast. But, you know, when you buy a company and you want to invest, you got to hold it for the long term. So that's probably the best thing that could have happened to you, forgetting about this. Did you choose to buy Bitcoin because of the prospect of gains or because the new technology? What do you think was a bigger factor?
The first time I bought it was simply because it was a fad. Uh, I bought it the second time because the thing that tipped me off specifically was in April of 2020. I think the price of oil was negative per barrel. Um, Interest rates were at zero or close to it, and the economy shut down, and they injected 2 trillion into the system. And I mean, I took Econ 101 at Beller High School with Coach Clark, who was like a scout for the baseball team. He was a great teacher.
Mr. Clark
Uh,
is a legend. He's up in
yeah,
Iowa right now.
really. I remember him being a huge Iowa Hawkeye and like Chicago Cub fan.
Yeah, he was a legend. He also taught me economics as well. So shout out, Mr. Clark. I want to send this to him on LinkedIn. I will. I will.
For sure. I should honestly go connect with him. He's a great resource. But yeah, man, his class, and I honestly sucked in his class. Like I think he passed me on a few tests. Like I finished with this like a 72 or something. Shout
You
out to
got
Coach Clark.
you
Appreciate
sent
you.
you sent Rocky down to his office to get you to pass.
Exactly, man. We had that going. So maybe we shouldn't send this to him after that. But yeah,
No, it's
he
it's all
was he was
jokes.
a legend.
Yeah.
He was a legend, man, and I appreciate what he did. And yeah, it just the things in 2020 were not making sense.
Hmm.
That's simply it for me. So I started trying to do research. The first place I started was Poor Dad Rich Dad, or Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Hmm.
Robert Kiyosaki. Um, Great book. Everybody should read that book. It should be required in classes. Um, and actually, the only reason I liked economics was because I thought it was applicable to the real world. Real world, like when you're learning the Pythagorean theorem, that shit is not used in the real world. So
Hey man, the
econ,
the other day I was thinking about building my own sundial, and so in that case maybe, but for
okay,
everybody else who does actual regular stuff, I agree with that.
for sure, for sure. In the sundial case,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, I liked econ and had a lot of time on my hands being back in Houston, staying at my mom's, and just started learning. Started learning about something called the dollar milkshake theory. Uh, like I said, Robert Kiyosaki.
Is that like
Um,
the Big Mac index? Or could you
I don't
explain
I
the
don't think so.
milkshake?
The
Could you explain?
milkshake,
Yeah.
I'll just do it in layman's terms, but it's essentially that like the U.S. debt is not as bad as it seems because all of the debt is owed in dollars. Is the hedge fund guy who talks about this? I think his name is Brent Johnson.
Hmm.
So you can fact check me, please do. Uh, but he started talking about that, and then I just went down this rabbit hole. I learned about Anthony Pompliano. He's a great resource on YouTube for learning about Bitcoin. He did a show every day called Lunch Money, and he
Oh,
would just talk on.
yeah, Pomp. He's on CNBC, right?
Yeah, Pomp is on CNBC.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, I started watching a couple hours of YouTube a day, and doing research on Twitter, crypto Twitter. You can learn a lot on there. There's a lot of bullshit you got to sift through, but there's a lot of good stuff on there as well. Uh, YouTube, podcasts, that stuff. Like I learned more on the internet in that like 6, 7 month, 8 month period of time than I ever did in school. It was crazy, and I realized Bitcoin was being accepted by a lot of people in the industry, like Paul Tudor Jones, Stan Druckenmiller, uh, great macro investors. And I figured if these guys own it, I should probably own a little bit of it too. So that was my that was like how I wanted to navigate my investments during the COVID
And your second
time
purchase,
frame of
right?
my
And
second purchase was
2020, right?
around, yeah, like March, April 2020.
During this research, yeah, there's a lot of great points that I want to dive in here. First of all,
Sure.
following experts is a very smart thing you can do. Like you were saying earlier, there's a lot of bullshit on the internet, on these pages. There's a lot of great nuggets of information, tried and true. Testing, or trusting the people that are industry experts. That's a good place to start. Um, and then I like the point that you made about learning more from the internet rather than school. And that's such a sad reality. But it's true. I see our schooling system as a great way to get a general base of knowledge in a lot of different categories, but we're not teaching our students to be excited about what they're learning. And so they're not going to ask further questions. So you're only going to learn, what's taught to you. You're not going to demand more from your teachers. And frankly, the curriculum doesn't change, like what we've seen in politics with our laws not changing as quickly as technology does, with our, slow adoption of Bitcoin regulations, that sort of thing. The same is true in our curriculum. We're very slow to adopt new ways of teaching, and when we are, they're often very controversial, and yeah, we won't get into that so much. But I'm so glad
I,
that you bootstrapped it and you took the internet and you used it to your advantage. That's fantastic.
there's in my opinion, it should be like a national emergency. Like the fact that they don't teach personal finance uh, the, in the school system is, in my opinion, doing everybody a huge disservice.
Why do you think they
Uh,
don't?
um, I don't really want to get into that. I could go down a rabbit hole there, but
Are you pessimistic generally
yeah,
about
I
this?
am.
Yeah.
I am. I have a very libertarian view on it.
Oh, I'm a libertarian as well.
Yeah, I think that, but I'll go back to my point before I get too far down that. Uh, they're doing a huge disservice, and I got a job out of college working at Oracle doing sales, and I had to figure out what am I going to do with the money I'm going to be making. Um, and not a lot of people think that way, nor do they have access to that. Like, we're very fortunate. Like I have access to financial advisors, and I have access to, the internet to learn this kind of stuff. But for a single mom who has to work two jobs and take care of her kids, she can't just save because of inflation. She has to invest. And to be a good investor, it's sometimes a full-time job that you have to put a lot of attention to detail to be good at. And that is just to me, it didn't sit right, or it doesn't sit right. And I think Bitcoin is an avenue to kind of mitigate that.
Hmm. I do think that personal finance, especially with people that are, juggling kids, jobs, I would assume is one of the first things that falls off because you're right. Being that we don't have any base level of knowledge of this, there is a steep learning curve. And I've seen a lot of great content recently on Instagram and the social medias with people teaching more about personal finance. But I do believe, I mean, you're kind of beholden to the algorithm. If that's not in your algorithm, you're missing your daily dose of financial literacy.
Right. And how many people are interested in that? Like, I sometimes, am sitting on my couch after work watching YouTube videos, and I'm just like, how lame am I? Like, I'm listening to Ray Dalio right now. It's a Thursday night. I should be out doing something. But that kind of stuff goes a long way.
When did you know you had this thirst for knowledge? Like, was it once you started making money and you're like, what the hell do I do with this? But like
Yeah.
listening to Ray Dalio, for those who don't know, very famous hedge fund investor, he has some great videos on the long-term debt cycles. Even me, look, I've passed one of the CFA exams. I have a finance degree. I'd like to think I'm, upper on the totem pole in terms of financial knowledge. I still had to rewatch that video like multiple times. It's thick stuff. So how the hell do you stumble on Ray Dalio and be able to digest that?
So I so I took a class my fall of 2019. The class was economic analysis. It was part of an entrepreneurship program I did at A&M. Um, it was basically creating a business from start to finish. I think my final project was like 362 pages in a couple thousand words worth of work. I mean, it was thick as fuck. Like, I had never put so much effort into a course, but every Wednesday we got to meet. We had a speaker, and we would get to meet, entrepreneurs, bankers, politicians, people in sales, all kinds of people. My favorite, or the one that impacted me the most was the CEO and founder of Rackspace Technology, Graham Weston. Um, Super nice guy, gave me a contact at Oracle. Um, really building those relationships and hearing those people talk about their paths to what made them being successful, and building my fictitious business as we went along with that. I just loved it. And another thing too is that after I stopped playing Bel Air baseball, I had to figure out what I was going to do. For forever, for me, it was baseball, baseball, baseball. What are we, I wasn't worried about later until I had to be. And so once I started taking this class and learning about business and entrepreneurship, especially, that was when the wheels started turning. And then COVID was right after, and things just kind of coincided.
Sorry, my dad's watching the Texas A&M LSU baseball game in the background. If you
Let's
heard that,
go.
yeah, it's 6-6, but LSU's got two people on, so we'll see about that one.
Let's go.
What were some common attributes that you saw between the speakers? I mean, I'm sure there were different businesses, different walks of life. Um, what similarities did you see?
That's a great question. I don't even know off the top of my head. They to me, they always seemed very prepared. They they had their shit together. They went in with a plan to everything that they were doing, and they executed it. And I think that is, having a plan is crucial to just navigating all the bullshit that we're dealing with right now.
I agree. It's so important. Um, yeah, to have a plan, follow it. Like specifically with investments, when you
Yeah.
make an investment, understand where you think that investment's going to go. That way, you can fact check yourself and see, if it's turning the other way. Do you want to, change your mind? Because so quickly, even in my own investments, if I go in without a big plan, you can, spin on a dime as soon as it drops a few percent. And so it is important to have that long-term plan. I definitely echo that. Back
Uh,
to, sorry, back to Bitcoin in 2020.
sure.
So you're doing all this research, economic research. What specifically told you that Bitcoin was a good idea? Was it, yeah, yeah, ooh, what told you?
What told me was the fact that it couldn't be debased or devalued.
Hmm.
The fact that I checked my Coinbase wallet 3 years later, and maybe in US dollar value, I went down. However, I still had the same amount of Bitcoin. Uh, so the limited number of units I thought was really interesting. The fact that you can't create any more of it, because it seems so simple and it's hard to rationalize. Like, how do you have a society where you can't create more money? Um, so I think that kind of made me question even more, like, what is this? How does this work? And when I figured out that the finite supply is actually a pro and not a con, um, that kind of got me going a little bit. And then the fact that it's state resistant, I think recently has shown me even more of its like intrinsic value, I guess. Um, because I think that moving forward, we're going to need state resistant money, and I think it's going to be really important.
Yeah, I agree. I like a lot of those points. Having, nobody has control over that monetary supply is super important, especially what really scared me in 2020 was the high inflation and the fact that we were willing to just turn on the taps completely. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of economic experts believe that the US dollar will go to zero eventually. Are you familiar with Peter Schiff?
Yeah, I know Peter Schiff. He's a big gold bug.
Yeah, the weird thing about him is he loves gold and Bitcoin's considered digital gold and he like hates Bitcoin. He's like, no, like, it's all about gold. I watched a video of him and the creator of Hex just like duke it out. But what was strange is you have this creator of Hex, which is, like a cryptocurrency or a big cryptocurrency guy, he's wearing the Gucci suit and everything. He's got like the gaming chair, like
Crypto rich.
yeah, he's very exactly. That's a great term. Crypto rich. And then you
Yeah.
have Peter Schiff, which is like very old school, like fundamental. And they both agreed that the US dollar's value is eventually going to zero.
Hmm.
That that's absolutely crazy.
I agree. And when you really get down the rabbit hole on central banking and uh, the creation of capital, you start to think that way also. I think Charlie Munger actually said that recently, like within the past couple of weeks, he came out and said all fiats are going to go to zero. And the reason that I like Bitcoin over gold is because, I think about if I had to escape, leave Ukraine, you're not taking bars of gold with you. You're taking your Bitcoin hardware wallet that's, yay big. It's the portability of Bitcoin and the fact that there are no borders with it is huge, and I think it gives it an edge over gold in that sense. However, I do think that owning some gold is definitely like a valid strategy and a good play.
I think it's a valid hedge for a lot of reasons, but I mean, nowadays any investment could be a hedge if it's something different than what you previously invest in. I like your
Sure.
point on physical gold being like tough to move around. You're right, like nobody's picking up gold bars. Like we're not living in Sharia law where everybody has gold all over their chest and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, Whereas
I,
Bitcoin, your wallet can be a piece of paper. All you need is a piece of paper and access to the internet. Absolutely absurd.
right, like it's even as far as you can keep your seed phrase in your head, and that's all you need. But really, if you have access to a phone, you can access Bitcoin. And there's like I don't know how many billion people in the world, but I think there's 3 billion smartphones out there. So the ease of access is incredible, and technology is only getting better. You actually made a point um, about that, and I was wondering if you've ever read the book "The Price of Tomorrow" by Jeff Booth. It talks about how our economics work in an inflationary way, but our society is ruled by technology, which is actually deflationary in nature. It makes things easier, faster, smoother.
More
Um,
productivity.
exactly, and so it's a very interesting balancing act that's going on here. And
And that's I want to jump in real quick. And that's why
sure,
the central bank typically wants to have a 2% inflation rate. That's to account for production increases. New technology, we become more productive. We're able to produce more, widgets and whatnot. And then also population increase. That way, when I'm going to the store to buy milk, let's say milk's $3 a gallon, 10 years down the line, the hope is, it's still relatively like that would be relatively. I don't know what it'd be in 10 years, to be honest. 2% every year, I guess.
well, so it's so interesting because like I talked to my mother who is, 64, turning 65 this year, bless her soul. And she's always grown up in this environment that's like inflation is a good thing. She has that thought process. And uh, I don't see it that way. I think that the monetary policy since, let's call it 2008, um, has widened and created this wealth inequality gap that is so large and such a problem, um,
Inflation
that
is really bad for people that save money and that aren't invested. So specific to your point about the gap in wealth, people who are on the lower totem pole, they get absolutely screwed when inflation's crazy because they don't know about investing, they don't have their money in the right assets, and it diminishes, which is really sad.
it is. And I think it's happening right now. I think that the middle class is eroding, and I think that we're about to see a huge inflationary spike for the rest of the decade, in my opinion.
To
I don't know.
like,
What do you think? What do you think? I'd like to hear your thought.
what do I think about?
What do you think about Bitcoin? You have any, are you a Bitcoiner? Do you believe in
Okay.
it?
Well, before
Like,
before I
I
go
feel
off
like
the
I've just been rambling here. So,
no. First of all, whenever you're like on a podcast or talking about these things, you always feel like you're rambling. But
yeah,
when you listen back, you're like, damn, I sounded smart. Like, what the fuck? Like,
let's
it's
fucking
always,
go.
yeah, it's a weird thing, and you're doing great. I do want to correct my earlier statement about milk. So, with 2% inflation, it's supposed to account for population growth and productivity growth. So theoretically, when I spend $3 on milk today, in 10 years, it should be $3 because we become more productive and, I can have more cows in a smaller area, that sort of thing. So the prices don't change. So it's
Hmm.
more of a way for, because you have a mental price of milk, like $3. If you go
Right.
to the store and all of a sudden it's like $4, you're like, what the fuck? I thought it was three. Like there's a lot of psychology when it comes to those price changes. But I do think maybe for insidious reasons, it's an ability for that government to have money to control people. I do pessimistically believe that actually no, the purpose of a government is to stay in power. You want to protect your whoever you're governing over, but I think their main purpose is staying in power, and you do that through having a good currency, providing food and shelter. You're a provider for your community, and so I do believe that what the government does is to stay in power, whether
Yeah.
that be for the betterment of us or for the betterment of them holding that power. Generally, I'm big on Bitcoin. I like decentralization
Yes,
because
sir.
I mean, dude, when you look at our politicians, like I'm I like to be an optimist, or I try to be an optimist. I want
For
to believe
sure.
that everybody wants to do what's right for our country, but I do believe there are people that want to just be incumbents and like that power. And one thing that sticks out to me is the average age of our Congress people.
Hmm.
I don't have that number in front of me. I would be astounded if that number was like under 55.
I think it's a huge problem. I I'm going to give you an example, a baseball example. Like, if you're the Houston Astros, when we were ass in like 2013, 14, like we had a bunch of old managers, but if you have a good young team, you want a good young manager. And
Hmm.
that's gonna grow your franchise, and that's gonna build you that dynasty. If obviously certain situations call for you to bring in a veteran manager who has a lot of experience, and that's okay. However, like you're saying, the average age of a politician is probably over the age of 55, and
Yeah. So for
like
Congress,
it's
sorry,
yeah.
for Congress, it's 57.6, and for senators, it's 62.9. When's the last time you spoke with a 60-year-old, like a 63-year-old, and you're like, wow, they know everything about like Bitcoin and like NFTs, like regardless where you stand on this, it's like, look, this is clearly something that needs to be discussed, and I want the people making decisions to be at least knowledgeable about this shit.
I agree to 100%. Like it's a glaring issue. I don't understand how people don't realize it, or to be frank, like maybe there's nothing they can do about it. Maybe that's just the way the system is until the system changes. I
I
don't
think
know.
I think there's benefits to having a rigid system that's tough to change
Hmm.
because you never want like I mean just looking at the Bitcoin's rise and fall, like you don't want us to be very quick to act or impulsive. You want to be
Yeah.
thought out. But I agree, they don't give me a lot of hope. I mean, I'm not spending all my day watching C-SPAN, but
Yeah.
it's not great stuff.
It is, man. But back to the topic of Bitcoin, it uh, in different periods throughout history, you've seen um, times of like flourishing and creativity and enlightenment, and like the Enlightenment, the Age of Enlightenment, the Gilded Age, the Industrial Revolution. These were all periods of history where money was sound, where money was not being fucked with by central banks as much. Um, you had a sound money system like the gold standard or a Bitcoin standard in the future. It's really interesting learning about uh, the dollar being taken off the gold standard and the Trifon dilemma and why we did that, because we didn't have enough gold for all the notes we were giving out. So it's technically a default. You can look at it that way. So we go to currencies being backed by nothing. Well, that was a global standard. So you have this essentially like fiat experiment that's been going on for the last 50 years. And another thing that I've gone pretty deep in is generational theory. There's something called the fourth turning. So going from the Industrial Revolution, transitioning to the information age. But you see like times of history kind of repeating themselves every 100 years. So it's all very interesting stuff, but I just don't see how Bitcoin doesn't play a role when, like you said to start the podcast, like it's all over CNBC. In fact, they've had it on the little bottom right where they show the price of crude oil and all that stuff. They
It's a
show
commodity now.
it's a commodity, exactly. And there's just for people who are skeptical, I hate to break it to you, but there's no fucking way this thing doesn't exist in some capacity moving forward.
I agree. The momentum is already there. And the fact that the big boys are starting to buy in, banks are buying it, there's ETFs, I trusts that allow you to buy Bitcoin. I think it's too big of a ship to sink, too big to fail almost. Shout out 2008.
Yeah,
Um, I want to talk some downsides about Bitcoin because I don't want
sure.
people to, I want to be, both sides a little bit.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's good.
the way that here's some downsides. It's very expensive. So the amount of transactions in each block in a block. So Bitcoin or the blockchain is kind of just like an extended ledger of all the transactions, who owns what, and in order to get those blocks placed on the blockchain, you need validators who use their computer assets in order to validate these transactions. Now, Bitcoin, the way it was built into its software, it doesn't verify a lot of transactions quickly. I don't have the numbers pulled up directly in front of me, but it's a slow amount in each block. So
Mm-hmm.
theoretically, it would be very expensive to send your money, which makes it not a good transactional currency.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of I want to say like on-chain systems or um,
Think of
level
them as
level
payment
two.
rails.
Yeah, payment rail. I like that. And they can bundle a lot of transactions and put them as like one on the block. So that way, like there are methods to lowering the transaction costs and to increasing the amount of or time to transact. So there are solutions to make it better. But as it stands, just solely as Bitcoin, it's a very slow way of sending money. It would kind of be like mailing, $1,000 via the mail system. It'd take a long time.
Definitely. And one of the things that they're actually developing now is something called the Lightning Network, um, which they're using in El Salvador, where Bitcoin is their legal tender. Um, that's an example of a nation that has been hurt by U.S. dollar hegemony, and they've gone to Bitcoin to as a life raft to get out of that system. Um, so there are developments being made there, but I think one misconception and one downside is a lot of people that buy it, they don't have the plan of holding it for a long period of time. They think that they're going to buy it, it's going to go up, they're going to take their profit, and
Speculators.
exactly. And if you do invest in this, I think that it's really important to know that short-term price action doesn't matter, and that because of supply and demand dynamics, it's going to appreciate over time because of supply and demand.
Now, the key point there is demand. So supply, we know it's fixed at 21 million. Right now, there's about 19 million
Yeah.
mined, and that amount is going to be logarithmic. It's going to continue to approach 21 million at a smaller and smaller amount. So the supply is fixed, which means if demand increases, boom, prices are going up. So my big question, if I'm holding Bitcoin as an investment, are more people going to need Bitcoin? I'm very positive with the fact that third world countries are using this as a life raft. To your example, I
Mm-hmm.
think they've been screwed a lot by having to use other foreign nations' currencies and being beholden to our monetary policy. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody buys oil in U.S. dollars. It's like the world reserve currency. It's like, and we have control of the printing press, so we can fuck everybody over by devaluing their currency and devaluing, how much money we owe everybody by lowering interest rates, that sort of thing. So we hold the power, and Bitcoin's a way for these nations to take power, and also the warlords who have owned a lot of these third world countries, they no longer have that control. It's the people taking control from their government in regards to their monetary system. Now, they still need their governments for protection, for food, that sort of thing, but it's a first step of them building their own ecosystem.
100%. Could not agree more. And I actually think that it would be to the United States' benefit to fully embrace Bitcoin.
That's a
Because
hot take. I want to hear this.
yeah, I think that they should fully embrace it. I mean, in my opinion, I think that um, shit, I could go down a big rabbit hole, but the this Russian Ukraine conflict is so crucial, in my opinion, to U.S. dollar as a world reserve currency. I mean, Jerome Powell, chairman of the Federal Reserve chairman, uh, said in front of Congress a couple of weeks ago that he could see a world where there's more than one reserve currency, whether that's the yuan in China, or some type of CBDC.
What's a
Who knows?
CBDC?
Central bank digital currency. So
Hmm.
it's essentially the US dollar on a blockchain. And in fact, this is an important point because a CBDC, what they're going to try to push out is the ultimate form of tyranny, in my opinion, and invasion of privacy. Because let's say you gamble too much. If there's a CBDC, they can stop you from gambling. In my opinion, they shouldn't have that type of power over your money. Um, I think that you should be in control of that. If
How would they stop my transactions?
well, they have total control over the um, like distribution of the dollars on the blockchain.
Mhm.
Um, they
Oh, I
could.
see what you mean. Like,
I
if
honestly don't know exactly like the inner workings of it
let's try to work it out. If
for sure.
the U.S. government is creating their own digital currency,
Hmm.
my understanding was not that they were going to use blockchain technology to do this. Now, are you
Sure,
saying they are going to use blockchain technology? Because
that
if they
was my
do,
assumption.
okay, if they do use
I don't know for
blockchain
sure.
technology, I definitely want to look into this later. If they do, then you're right. They have complete control. They can shut off certain people from operating the network, and they completely take control of the financial system. Whereas right now they have control over the supply, but they can't decide who transacts. They still have a large amount of government resources that are trying to like track down drug traffickers and people for their usage of the currency, but they can't just shut it off instantly. Um, like even going through banks, if I know that this Swiss bank or this US bank has like laundered money, I still have to go through certain steps to freeze it. Whereas if it's their blockchain, they can just shut off certain people. So I hope they're not doing a blockchain.
I'm with you on that because I think that it would just be horrible for the population. But Bitcoin, it actually, in my opinion, embraces a lot of what America was founded on. You know, civil liberties and personal freedom and personal sovereignty, and having who's the economist Frederick Hayek, I think, talks about having private money and how it can be. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, so I just pulled this up about central bank digital currency. Refers to money that is a liability from a central bank, uh, physical currency, and digital balances.
So it doesn't really say here if it's on a blockchain.
Yeah, I'll have to do some more research. I wish I had a Jamie for this episode. It'd be much easier.
Right.
And now I
Right.
know that I probably have to like read it out to people because not everybody's gonna be watching the video.
But yeah, man, I think that you know, with Bitcoin, it's not so much. A lot of the time now we're focused on right or left, and I don't think Bitcoin is any of that. I think that it's totally neutral, and I think that for the U.S., like we are so there are so many stressors for us right now. Like I think that people are going to want something that's neutral
They
coming
want
here in the
something
next
that's
10 years.
stable. Yeah,
They want something that's stable, that's neutral, that doesn't take sides. This is probably controversial, but I believe that the Canadian government um, locked out people who donated a certain amount to the Freedom Convoy, Freedom
hmm
Trucker Convoy in Canada. Whether you're whatever aisle you're sitting on, I hope you don't believe that government should have that type of power to freeze your fund for believing in something, because when it's your turn to go and protest and they freeze you for what you believe in, it's not going to be good. And I think that Bitcoin is going to be huge for people moving forward. That I think people are going to wake up to that, and I think they're going to take a liking to it. At least
So
I hope.
I hope as well. I see a lot of positivity, and generally, I'm just fucking excited about new technology. I love it, but new technology uproots the old. And I'll tell you what, there are sides on Bitcoin. There's people that are pro freedom, and there are people that want to stay in power. And
Mm-hmm.
I can say that pretty confidently. If I'm a central bank, and to be honest, I think the US government is just absolutely dick slapping every other country. Like the fact that you have to pay for like the most important commodity in US dollars, it's like, oh no, you demand our currency because like you need it. That's great negotiation. That's like
Yeah.
Donald Trump just like laying it on the table for them, like boom.
For
Um,
everybody that's listening, that's called the petrodollar system. And that's a really important thing to learn about. I think learning about the petrodollar system and that all oil is priced in US dollars was a big thing for me. Because here's the US government pushing this EV narrative while all of oil is priced in USD. These things conflict, and they don't make sense.
where was I before I got into come on. Fuck. What was your previous question? Oh,
Oh,
Canada. Okay, Canada.
Canada.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm a self-described libertarian, but I see two interesting sides to this. One, I
Mhm.
generally don't like an authoritarian like body being able to control like any of that shit. Like, hey, I don't agree with this. Boom, I'm turning off the tap. In the same way
Yeah.
that a lot of the social medias have done that, I don't like it. But on the other hand, the social medias are kind of different because they're private companies, and I do believe in private companies' rights to do certain things. Although there are a
Sure.
lot of times that it's like controversial, and that's why we have like Title IX to protect certain rights. Um,
Hmm.
with Canada, they saw the blockade as a threat to national security because they're trying to get their assets out. I forget what the truckers were. Do you remember what they were trucking?
They were they were against vaccine mandates.
Or what was in their cargo That's my question.
Uh, I'm not sure
I,
actually.
I do remember it was neat. It was deemed a threat of national security, and
I
that
believe
point.
they were blocking trade routes.
Okay. Um, and whether or not you agree it's a threat of national security, let's just say we do agree. I would want a government, or if the government's job is to protect us and there's something threatening our security, they do need to act because that's their job.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, you don't want them just reaching their arm in all of your business and being able to shut things down. Like that's incredibly crippling, and that would make me feel like out of power. And if I didn't agree with my government and they had that power, I would want to move away. And it's sad that America, which is, the, in my opinion, the freest country in the world,
Hmm.
would have like we're the freest country, but there's still so many like question marks, like
Yeah,
especially with our government, like what can they do to us? What kind of power can they exert? And we're seeing this from our brothers up north. It is scary, and I would say generally I'm against it, but I do see a government's job is to protect, and if something's threatening their protection, they should step in. So I think there's two sides to it.
100%. And I think that I probably don't think about that side of it enough because I do have this libertarian point of view that there should be smaller government, and that I think people would get along way better with each other if there wasn't all of this corruption from our leaders. And I actually think that another big thing about Bitcoin, and I didn't realize this at first, this is a recent realization I've had, but central bankers and the people that control the money supply, they manipulate the cost of capital, which manipulates our perceptions and makes us this consumerism society. And I think it's maybe not the root cause, but definitely has an effect on why um, our we as Americans are such short-term thinkers. And I think it all just ties together. But I think that manipulating the cost of capital has a way bigger impact than um, what the Federal Reserve realizes.
So what I'm thinking you're saying is when you keep interest rates low, people are
Mhm.
more apt to rack up some debt. Businesses will rack up debt, spend more money. It generally lowers the cost of things. And when things become cheaper than they were yesterday, in our minds, psychologically, they're relatively cheaper and we're more apt to spend money. Oh, it's only $90. I valued it at 100 because I saw it yesterday at 100. So you're kind of like
Mhm.
mind fucking them um, into purchasing these things. I do agree that consumerism, like I felt it so strong to my core when I first started working. Like you see those paychecks hit, you're like, damn, I could be spending all this money
For
on
sure.
cool shit, like caviar at restaurants, just like some dumb shit. And then when you like sit back and you look at it, you're like, damn, I'm spending all this money on stuff that I don't need. It doesn't really have an impact on my happiness.
Yeah.
And it's not progressing our society forth. And I think that's like the main capital is just a tool. And I think it should be used for progressing our society. And I think in in some way it's seen as like feed for the pigs.
Yeah, man. Bread and circus, right? Like that was what the Romans used to keep their citizens preoccupied with what they were really doing.
I didn't know
And
that. Wait, where'd
yeah,
you learn
man.
that? Did you take history classes?
Dude, I'm telling you, like I went so hard down this rabbit hole. I would have never considered myself academic whatsoever until I took this class and had this realization that I was about to go off into the real world. And I started reading books. I started learning about Ray Dalio and reading Robert Kiyosaki. And there's a book called The Sovereign Individual. Best book I have ever read. Talks about a lot of the things I'm trying to speak to, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Do you have a copy, a hard copy?
No, I don't. I'm a big audiobook guy.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
that'll be a topic for another day. I don't want to dive down too many rabbit holes. I do want to
Sure.
start like a book club almost. I've started reading lately and I
Hmm.
fucking love it. It's so great. It's so sad that I spent a lot of my free time, like entertainment time, I guess, watching like Netflix, like there's endless cool shit to watch. Like, have you opened up YouTube? I mean, anything you want to see. You want to see girls in bikinis, you want to see dudes spending millions of dollars,
Yeah.
like food porn, whatever it is, but it takes time and patience and a long-term outlook to read a book.
Hmm.
So The Sovereign Individual, I will read. It sounds really good. And a slight joke, like Ari, when I knew you in high school, like I mean, we weren't like best buds. You were always a year older. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely didn't take you as a an academic individual. I mean, you're always the chill guy who played
Yeah.
ball.
Like I was trying to like play baseball, talk to girls, like party with my friends. Like I had no interest in this. And yeah, man, like I think COVID changed a lot of people. I know for me personally, like having that amount of time on my hands, it really allowed me to just like a whole oyster. Like I don't even know if that's the right fucking
Yeah, yeah.
shellfish, but like the like and I went through another very powerful thing, dude. Like I went to Blinn before I got into A&M, and then once I was in A&M, I didn't have um, a direct path. Like my path is so unorthodox, but like I embrace that now.
Hmm.
I had one of my dad's best friends. So my parents went to UT. They grew up in Houston. They went to UT. All their friends in the Jewish community went to UT, and they had one friend that went to A&M. So every time he'd come through College Station, he'd take me out to dinner. He told me I should do sales, and I had no clue. Uh, before I before that conversation, the only jobs I had had was to be a cart boy at a couple golf clubs in Houston and up in College Station. So he tells me I should do sales, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna give this a shot. So I go to my career fair. I meet Oracle. She tells me I have a nice resume. This recruiter does, even though it's a sheet of printer paper, it's dog shit. And I'm like, I'm gonna work for this company. It's technology. It's in Austin. Like, this is what I'm gonna do. But I had no experience, so I went and knocked on doors for a summer selling AT&T Wi-Fi and like cable packages in Third Ward, Houston,
Holy
and in the
shit!
middle of the
During
summer,
summer, that's
during
like a hunt.
summer,
Yeah.
like
Oh my god.
bro, it was so like it was crazy, but
Does
it was
that bring back hitathon vibes?
100% like nightmares, dude.
And that for those who don't know, our we had a fundraiser at Bel Air Baseball where we would go door to door and ask everybody how much they'd like to donate per foot of our like hitting. So we would hit like 10 balls and the furthest ball like 400 feet or whatever. They'd have to donate a certain amount of cents per ball, and we did that for like multiple weekends. So we were like sweating our asses off, like khaki pants, and it looks like you just like sat in like a pool of water and like you just dripping everywhere. So I could only imagine it would be the same. But Third World is it's gentrifying a little bit. I saw some nice condos there the other day.
Good deal. That's good to hear. I haven't been back to Houston. I guess I was back in Houston last weekend. Who am I kidding? But haven't been to that part in a while.
Mhm.
But yeah, man, that was like the one of the toughest jobs I've ever had, but an amazing job at the same time. Like there's a paradox there, right? And I think that that's just true in life. You do hard things, and the universe rewards intent. If you commit to something, and if you have intent with it, you will get rewarded. Those fruit, those seeds will bloom.
You just
So I
don't know
did.
when it's going to be. There's a really cool story of a
Yeah.
gold miner who like spends like all week like digging out this gold, and finally he's like, fuck it, like he gives up and goes back to the shop that told him about the spot. He's like, yeah, there's no gold there, and one of those guys like goes back and he's like right on the line of gold, so he digs for like 1 minute and it's there. So I'm not sure if it actually happened, but it's a good tale that like you never know when you're going to get rewarded. You just have to be willing to work hard, make a plan, stick with it. And
Mhm.
it's so glad to hear that like this tough experience was really fruitful for you.
Sure, man. It was. And then, so after that, I went back to that career fair again, told Oracle what I did all summer, and they didn't even want to hear it. So I was like, oh, shit, man, I got to think of something else. So I went and I worked for Enterprise for a summer in College Station. It was like a sales management internship. And again, another kind of like nitty gritty job, like washing cars in the College Station heat, coming back in, dealing with a pissed off customer, Like that shit, it was really healthy for me. And I went back to the career fair a third time, got to tell Oracle again about what I did, told them I was there, got that job. Um, and so I think that just when you like you were saying, like if you put in the work, opportunity will arise. And if you've put in the work, you know, what is it like? Opportunity plus hard work equals good luck or something like that.
Yeah, I
Talking
think
about
there's a crossroads in there, like when you're working hard, like opportunity. Yeah, we all
for
understand what's
sure.
going on. You're
Yeah,
gonna get paid if you bust your ass eventually.
exactly, man. Exactly. And having that and working at Oracle for a long time, I moved to Austin in July of 2020. And I've gotten to see firsthand all of this inflation and how it's affected people. In my neighborhood specifically, which I live about 3 minutes from the Oracle building, which looks like goddamn Star Wars fucking warship.
Oh,
Like
jeez.
it's insane. But there's homeless camps from here to the Oracle building, and it's sad to see, man, and it has an effect on you. But moved here in July of 2020, was working remote in my apartment, and I just had all this time on my hands. Like, I'm still coming off of hanging out at my mom's all day doing nothing. So I was still down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. And then even with Oracle, I'd like finish making my cold calls, and then I watch CNBC and watch some YouTube and learn about Bitcoin. And
And here we are today.
and here we are today, man. It's crazy shit.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by like the level or like the breadth and the depth of like your knowledge on all these topics. It's so good to see people that are passionate about these new technologies that aren't just spewing whatever, they see on TikTok and that sort of thing. Because
Yeah.
to be honest, I think that is what's driving a lot of these. You have such an inflow of the retail investor. I think 2020 is the year that, to your point, everybody kind of woke up and said, okay, what's this investing thing? What's Bitcoin? Let me get into this. And when a lot of people jump in, it can be really exciting, and the party's going. But when the party's really going, that's when it's time to take away the punch bowl. That's a old Alan Greenspan quote.
For sure.
I'm pretty sure it's Greenspan.
Something like that. It's some old economist.
Yeah, but when the tides go out, you do see who's wearing pants and who's not. So I
Right.
think this crypto winter is definitely having people look themselves in the mirror and say, why am I investing in these technologies? Is this something new that's going to last? You know?
Right, man. And it's just Bitcoin itself. I mean, it's truly like I think at the beginning of it, I actually bought more Ethereum, and I bought like Chainlink, and I bought all these altcoins because I was like, oh, I can afford a full coin. That was kind of my thought process. And while those bets did pay off, uh, I kind of woke up to the fact after learning for a year and a half that Bitcoin is different than what those are.
I
It's
agree
trying to
completely.
achieve a completely different thing. And like I think what Elon Musk does on Twitter, where he tweets about Doge and pumps the price up, I think that's a disservice to the people. But at the same time, like you have to look at Bitcoin and all of its volatility in the past year. It's still above $30,000. It's just been trading in this choppy range, and it's it's just going to take off. It's just a matter of when.
So here are some of my like mega thoughts, like final thoughts on Bitcoins, these cryptos.
Yeah,
Let's gotta sit up straight for it, let it flow out.
for sure.
Bitcoin is absolutely different than those different altcoins. It's trying to be digital gold. I love that nobody has control over it. It's the technology's been put out there, nobody can influence it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. It's great for people. I think in the long term it will have a lower return profile than those altcoins because you know more risk equals more return.
Yeah.
It's a well understood understanding in finance. And so that is going to happen. But when you're investing in these altcoins or even shit coins, like you never know if the project's legit or sorry, you can't know with certainty if that project will last. I like to think of these altcoins kind of like companies. You know, you have a development team, you have the people that are running the coin, improving on it, challenging new things, and they have this vision. And you know, sometimes just like companies, they don't pan out, or you have insidious owners. So there is additional risk with the altcoins. I do love a lot of the prospects about what they're doing,
Mhm.
specifically the work they're doing to interplay different blockchains um, with Bitcoin to allow for like more transactions, make it more usable.
Mhm.
There's like basically every Web two company, every corporation, internet company today. There's like a Web three copy of them. Like YouTube, there's like a Web three version where it's like fuck the central system. Like you own your video, it's on your blockchain, and so there's a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah.
I think if you have your money in Bitcoin, there is additional risk because you don't buy your goods in Bitcoin. Like
Hmm.
it, if
You
I
still
live
need your US dollar to pay rent.
you still need US dollars. So when the Bitcoin fluctuates very highly, it can impact you. Now, let's think, for example, of El Salvador. Imagine they're a totally insulated country. Everything, they create everything themselves, and it's all paid for in Bitcoin. You don't care if Bitcoin goes up or down because the price of your goods really doesn't change at all because you transact in there. So as
Hmm.
long as we're still needing demand, as long as we still need to pay for shit with dollars, there is additional risk there. But I've seen a lot of great steps, a lot of different companies, countries wanting to accept Bitcoin. Um, and I think that provides a great opportunity, and it's kind of reduces some of the risk of owning Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So, in summary, I think it's going to have lower returns than the altcoins. I think it's digital gold, so it will have similar characteristics in that eventually it won't be as volatile. But
Hmm.
that comes as we get closer to that 21 million mark. I think it's a great
Right.
time to buy. I think it's should be seen for most investors as an alternate asset class. Instead of owning cash, and cash is pretty much trash, but when
Yeah.
when things are cheap, you have the opportunity to buy stuff. I would, instead of owning cash, I would have like 5% of Bitcoin. That's just me, not financial advice, but
Right.
I think it's got a lot of opportunity. I'm working with friends and family and making sure that crypto is a part of their portfolio.
Yeah.
Not so much to where like they're going to be a millionaire overnight, but I think with a well diversified portfolio, you do need to have your feet in under other technologies. And I do want to close off with like a kind of a side point
Hmm.
for those who don't know much about personal investing. Yeah, I would love to discuss it. Feel free to reach out, give me a call directly, DM me. My big piece of advice, I gave this out. I used to give it out on Snapchat. Is buy index funds. Don't try to get rich buying individual stocks. I like the S&P 500. My favorite is VOO, which is owned by Vanguard because it has the lowest expense ratios, essentially the cost of owning the fund, and you get slices of the 500 largest companies in the US. And what makes this such a great long-term investment in my mind is that I'm not betting on 500 stagnant companies. I'm betting on the 500 best companies. So let's say company number 500 on the list is shit and it loses value. It's not good. Boom, it drops out. I'm no longer invested. Good companies go in there and you have survivorship bias. That might not be the right one, but basically, if it's a good company, it's going to be added there, and that just bodes well for your long-term return. So that's a big asset that I would be holding. But I do think crypto should be a part of your portfolio, and I think if you have a little bit of extra time, go down the rabbit holes, follow your interests, your intuition. There's a lot of fascinating things to learn about, like just to learn. But even for investments, there's been a lot of companies that are doing exciting things to where I'm willing to take a little bit more risk to invest in them because I do think the return profile is there. So generally, I'm just very excited about the new technology. And I really want to encourage people to ask questions, have dialogue, because even with conversations with my dad, who's almost 60 years old oil and gas guy, says he never wants to invest in crypto. And when I tell him about all the great different like crypto projects, he pokes holes in them. And I'm like, shit, like you're right here. Or, I didn't think of it that way. And it makes me strengthen my argument because at the end of the day, it takes an army of people on both sides, having constructive criticism and
Yeah,
effective
man.
dialogue to figure out what is truth.
Strong opinions loosely held. Be strong in your opinion. Believe in what you're saying, have confidence in that, but change when the facts change. And another point that I'll kind of send it off on is to be greedy when others are fearful. I think there's a ton of opportunity out there. You just have to put in the research, and you'll find it.
I like it. There is one story I do want to touch on. I saw you like this on LinkedIn. I was fucking stoked when I saw it because I dove in a little bit and I have like 20 tabs opened on this topic.
Mm-hmm.
Two A&M grads. And I had this idea. I want to say this. I had this idea, like it's in a journal somewhere, probably like a year ago. So in West Texas, a little bit of oil and gas background. Um, we can sell oil for good money, but gas has a tougher market because it's tougher to transport it. You need pipelines, and I'm sure everybody's heard of the Keystone Pipeline. You know, politicians coming in, it's back and forth. It's never. I don't think it's ever going to be built, although I hope it does. But essentially, there's no infrastructure to transfer the gas from the wellhead to the consumer and make money. The economics don't make sense. So it's actually cheaper just to burn it. And being that we don't have any sort of carbon tax, which generally I'm in favor for, a lot of people disagree. I'd love to have someone on the podcast talking about carbon tax because I think it's fascinating. But they just burn it out there. So if you look at West Texas from space, it looks like a fucking candle. It's just burning there, wasting energy, heating up the environment. I'm surprised more environmentalists don't talk about this. It's pretty terrible. But these two entrepreneurial A&M grads, or I think they were still at A&M during this, decided, let's use this gas to power generators and to generate electricity, and we'll get a shipping container of Bitcoin miners. So you just drive in with the truck, hook up your shipping container of miners to the wellhead, get the gas, and it's like free energy. I don't know what kind of contracts they have to get that. I mean, you're burning it and you're not paying any penalties. If there was a carbon tax, they'd be absolutely like extra raking it in. But I saw they made over like $4 million, and I think they're still in college. So like, first of all, like gig them, like great for the grads, and it's
Yeah.
it's great. It's a great idea, and for everybody who says like Bitcoin's so bad on the environment. People are using their entrepreneurial minds to make it better. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, man. Free markets will ensure that innovation continues, and Bitcoin is a free market, and there's a lot of opportunity within that market. And what they're doing is just awesome. And I hate the narrative that Bitcoin is bad for the environment, because look at what the current financial system does for the environment. It's not good.
Newsflash:
Maybe
we're
it's
bad for the environment.
that's 100%. We could all be better, but the what they're doing is taking maybe not renewable energy, but wasted energy, and they're turning it into economic good. So it's positive.
It is a big positive. Finding the scraps on the table, figuring out how to turn a dime and a nickel into a dollar. You know what I mean?
It's big money, bro.
It is nice. So there's a lot of excitement. Ari, it's been a pleasure having you on. You've thoroughly impressed me, and I've learned a lot about Bitcoin. I will ask, and you don't have to
Yeah,
tell me, what
sure.
percentage of your portfolio is Bitcoin?
A large portion.
A large,
I'll
are we
leave it
talking
at
like
that.
over 10%?
Yeah.
There you go. Hey, when you're young, you can take those risks. So I like people that are strong in their conviction, and I
Yeah.
like you said strong opinions held loosely.
Strong opinions, loosely held.
I
For
fucking
sure.
love that. That's a great one.
Yeah, man.
On
That's a
that,
good one.
we'll leave it, Ari. It's been a pleasure catching up with you. Hopefully, people have learned a little bit. If you do have
Yeah.
questions, reach out to myself or reach out to Ari, and
Yeah.
we'd love to discuss. And on that one, I'll send it out.
All right. Thanks, Jordan.
Peace.
Peace.